It's the Solar One Sci-Fi podcast.
Hello, this is episode 151 of the Solar One Sci-Fi podcast. I'm Michael Ball. I'm joined once again by the demigod of knowledge, Martin Fowler in London.
Thank you very much.
And this week we actually were going to have a short break, but I have been following a fellow YouTuber who's a big Star Trek fan, and he's been sort of creating some great material, reviews and things like that. And that is Nick from Sci-Finatics, and he's joined us today. Hello, Nick.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Martin. Thanks for having me on the show. Much appreciated.
Yeah, welcome. No,
Thank you very much.
It's an honour. Live long and prosper.
We've been meaning to do this for a while, actually, but I've seen that, because like with Nick, I saw you recently on another podcast where you had Terry Metalis. You had your big group of big YouTubers.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that was amazing.
Wow.
That was a huge day. There was like about, I think, somewhere between 8 and 10, like, of the sort of big sort of Star Trek YouTubers all in this one chat thing, and Terry came and joined, and we asked him questions. It was one of those things. You go, my God, how many people are joining this stream? It was huge.
It was amazing, because as it started off, just more and more of the big guns joined. And I just thought that was great, and it was obviously nice that you could actually contribute to something. And of course, that was because of Star Trek Picard season 3. We both loved it. We were totally blown away by the whole thing.
Likewise.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I know we're going to talk about things in general, but one thing which we are already talking about, hopefully happening at some point, is a sequel of some sort to Star Trek Picard.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that? Are you up for it, or do you think you might have...
Oh, absolutely up for it in every way, shape and form. I think, watching season 3 just blew so many, Star Trek fans out of the water. It's like, oh my God, this is the Star Trek we've been waiting to see. And there were so many moments in season 3 that felt so, ingrained in the Star Trek that we all know and love and have loved for the last, 30 plus, 30, 40, 50 years.
Sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
That I think... Obviously, Terry Metalis knows Star Trek. He got his start on Star Trek with Voyager. Worked on Voyager. Then he obviously moved across to Star Trek Enterprise.
Yes.
I think he might have even done a little bit of time on DS9. I think as well at some point in between the two, perhaps.
Yeah.
So the guy undoubtedly was basically Get Star Trek, cut his teeth on Rick Berman era Star Trek, and you can tell that if Star Trek Picard, where it kind of left off at the end of the series, there was just set up to go into a new show, which is obviously the Star Trek Legacy show, which he wants to get off the ground.
Right.
You know that the franchise is going to be in good hands if he's the showrunner, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's
definitely.
funny because for me, my favourite era of Star Trek is actually the Rick Berman era, probably from 1987 until the end of Enterprise in 2005. A lot of people are very against the Kelvin films and a lot of the stuff that's come on afterwards. I'm okay about it. I don't. It's. Every fan is different. We all like different aspects of Star Trek. We all like Star Trek, but I think that us three, from what I gather, that era of the 90s and the 24th century era and the Rick Berman era is, at least for me and Martin, that is one of our main favourite parts of Star Trek.
The golden age.
Absolutely.
The golden age of Star Trek is the 90s.
Oh, without a doubt. It was Next Generation and beyond, in that whole Rick Berman era that got me, into Star Trek in a big way. Like I'd seen the original series movies. Right. I think I'd seen a motion picture, and I'd sort of seen Wrath of Khan and 3 and 4 and everything. But it's like, oh yeah, this is okay. But it hadn't gotten into my bones at that point. It wasn't until Encounter at Farpoint, 1987, that it really kind of
that's when
got deep into my DNA, so to speak. And then obviously, I think having watched Next Generation, like the first couple of seasons, I think what I did is I kind of watched, say, the first 3 seasons of Next Generation, then after that had got its hooks into me, then I went back and kind of rewatched.
The original series.
The original series, and the, you know, do you know what I mean? Like, and then it's sort of, okay, like, you know, like I think that was, that's what really kind of. The whole Rick Berman era from season 1 of Next Generation right through to season 4 of Enterprise, that really kind of embedded itself in me to being this is my Star Trek.
I think for me, because I'm slightly older, I grew up in the 70s with the original series. I remember going to see the motion picture when it was released in 1979 with my family, and my nan, she fell asleep in it. She fell asleep.
Yes.
And it's like I remember when the Next Generation came along. It was obviously after the first 4 movies, and I was blown away by then. And this is when it was just, what I liked about it was that the whole universe was expanding into different aspects of that universe. And now look where we are with I think there's 11 live action series now or something like that, plus some animated.
It's crazy.
Huge. It's amazing.
For me,
do you know what I've always wanted to do with the motion picture? And I rewatched the director's edition not that long ago. I think I watched it before season 1 of Strange New Worlds aired.
Right.
And I actually, in watching the motion picture, I actually started thinking about the plot of it and all of the story beats within the plot. And what I think you could do with the motion picture, if you re-edited the motion picture to the length of an average Star Trek episode, it would actually be a really good Star Trek episode. But I'm convinced, having just watched it recently, that the amount of actual plot in motion picture is about 50 minutes to an hour,
right?
And the rest is sort of these very long, drawn out, sort of, you know, padded.
Like
moments.
Looking at the Enterprise bridge at the cloud, and it goes on. I like it, but it's...
I always thought that, like, I saw motion picture with my family. My dad were absolutely bored stiff. I was blown away by it, and like, I agree, because it was when they were going to do Star Trek the series, but they went to the motion picture instead. This was part of the intended pilot episode, wasn't it? Part of the story. But I totally agree. You could do that in 1 hour as a pilot.
It would be a great if you re-edited that movie into a 50 minute to 1 hour episode. If it was like an episode of Strange New Worlds with today's current episode pacing, I reckon it would be really entertaining. It'd have it hit its all the little moments. But if you just trim all those moments where you've got Spock going out to look at the Vija cloud, or you've got Kirk admiring the Enterprise from the shuttle pod before he boards, and if you trim all those moments down, you'd be cutting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes out of the whole thing.
You can soon chop it down. You can chop it down,
and it would be a really entertaining watch, I reckon. It's just that's the only thing wrong with the story is actually quite a good story. It's just those beats in the actual film.
Do you know how you open up the episode? You have the Klingon scene as the opening before the credits.
I love that. The opening scene's really good.
Like a 3-minute cut down with that beautiful music. So I remember when I heard the Klingon music for the first time ever, I was like, this is incredible.
But if you think about that as an opening, right, you've got 2 moments at the start of that film. You've got the Klingon ships being attacked by the Vija cloud, and you've also got the space station, the Federation space station, being attacked as well. You don't need both. From a storytelling point of view, think about it in the sense of a pre-title teaser. You need one of those moments to establish there is this gigantic cloud that's about to attack the Alpha Quadrant or whatever it is, and to show its threat and its danger and everything, you either have the space station being destroyed or you have the Klingons being destroyed. Showing both of them is superfluous. It doesn't advance the story.
I agree. Well, anyway, I mean, it's the same with in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, where apparently somebody's condensing it and making it into.
I've seen that.
Has it actually
I've seen
been released
that, yeah.
yet? Oh, I didn't know it's been done.
Well, no. There's
What's
been a
that?
fan cut of that where they've taken the 6-part episodes and they've condensed it into a 2.5-hour film. I watched it a little while ago. It was released online, and oh my god, it is so much better.
Is it?
So
you would recommend it?
Absolutely would recommend it, because the actual story, the Obi-Wan story, was conceived initially as a movie. It wasn't conceived as a 6-part series. So they've taken the story and then they've stretched it out to make up 6 episodes. Once you take it, and it's exactly the same thing as what we're talking about with motion picture. You take out all the fluffy bits that don't actually advance the plot, and it actually tightens itself up into a really cracking 2.5 hour film.
I want to see that. I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, that's Star Wars, and we're actually here really for Star Trek. So, I suppose at this point, let's ask you, Nick. So far, we've had 4 episodes of Strange New Worlds season 2. Season 1, of course, was pretty good. So, tell me what you think about the whole series and the show in general so far.
Yeah, look, I'm enjoying it. I don't think we've had a bad episode yet. I think the first what are we up to? We're up to the first 4 episodes we've seen, haven't we? So look, all of those I think they've been entertaining. I think they've done a good job to really show, I think, the crew in that ensemble cast, how you got one episode focusing on different characters. Obviously episode 1 was sort of very heavy sort of Spock focused episode with a bit of Mbenga and Chapel and stuff in there as well. Episode 2 was obviously the big trial episode with which again, some of the really best episodes of Star Trek have been courtroom based episodes, much like Measure of a Man and so forth. They've been highly entertaining, so I think it did a good job.
I said to Martin that episode 2, I think it needed a bit of a B plot. It was quite a long episode,
yes,
and also
it was. It didn't have a B story.
But yeah, I mean, we also watched, well, it's a few years ago, but we were quite fans of the fan series Star Trek Continues, and they had a courtroom episode, and they also had a B plot where they were trying to find the USS Exeter, and those 2 elements worked really well. And I think, unless the episode maybe had been slightly shorter, but I think it was just as you say, it needed a B plot of some sort. That's the only criticism I had for episode 2 with the courtroom episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, almost the episode that we've had so far that's felt the most iconically Star Trek, I think, was last week's episode, Among the Lotus Eaters. Yeah. That the whole plot structure of that, going back to what's the planet name? Rigel 7 with the Kalar. The way that kind of played out. And obviously that had an A and a B story with what was going on up on the ship in orbit. We had the guys down on the planet. That episode to me really felt like the story structure was very much rooted in that original series storytelling structure.
Yes, the way of doing it. Yes,
it felt really original series to me, that episode.
That's what I thought. It's definitely been the best one. Yeah, the whole episode. I mean, this series so far, like, when I'm in and out with Discovery, it's
a lot of people
got a relationship with it. Yeah. But when they brought in when Anson Mount came into Discovery season 2, he nailed that for me. And then everybody wanted him to be the next, captain. And when Strange New Worlds started, the pilot episode I thought was being that episode I thought was the best pilot episode of Star Trek for me I've seen. And I think he's nailed it. And I think this series where they've been moving around the cast has been good. Because I watched last week's episode last night. Yep. And it was interesting seeing the dark side to his character when he lost his memory. And he beat the hell out of that guy. And there was this killer thing on his face. It was an interesting side to see in that character. Because he's a diplomat, isn't he? And
Well, and he did say that the planet or whatever brings out your true self or whatever. So I was like, okay, we're gonna watch you when you get in a bad mood. I think last week's episode was the first episode where we actually had any extensive scenes with Pike in them, because the first episode he wasn't in it. He went off to go find Una's lawyer, so he wasn't in episode 1. Yeah. Episode 2, most of his appearances, as brief as they were essentially him watching the trial play out on a TV screen. Yeah. Episode 3 obviously was all about La'an and Kirk with their little time travel adventure. So it wasn't until episode 4 we've actually got any really kind of decent screen time out of Pike, which is kind of I guess unusual, because you sort of think of him as the tent pole for the show, but they definitely seem to be going on a more of an ensemble cast focus this season.
It's more like when it started, it could have been more like the original series, where it was the main 3 characters were the focus, and you had these obviously supplementary like Sulu and Chekhov. Whereas the Next Generation onwards, it was more of an ensemble, and they've obviously continued that with this series. So, I mean, of course, what the interesting thing is that as it goes on, it is getting closer and closer to TOS. And I think it's going to be quite hard to slot it all together, especially with the updated looks. And, I mean, do you think it might? Yeah,
I mean, obviously, as we go, we find as we go on, I think we're observing these little, just ever so slight course corrections, just so that they don't have to, like, they're observing canon, but at the same time, we're getting these little bits, and I'd be interested to see what you guys think about the little tweaks in the timeline of things occurring, much like in the third episode. Exactly, when the eugenics wars and everything's happened. So obviously, they've pretty much established that in the I'm not exactly sure what year their little adventure in Toronto was meant to take place.
2022, I think it was.
Okay, so we're saying that in 2022, Khan was like 8 or 9 years old. So we've now essentially retconned the whole eugenics wars to say the mid to late mid 21st century.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting with that, because I when I saw Khan, because the canon is a bit messed up, because there were 3 World War III, the eugenics war, World War III, then there were Colonel Green.
That's right, Colonel Green, that's it,
the purification movement, killing mutants. And I think what they're trying to do now is establish a solid timeline with it all. Makes sense, because it was like Khan was originally in the 90s, wasn't he? And then Voyager went to the 90s with Chrono Works, and it was like, well, we Khan somewhere in the world at this time. And I can see what they're doing. I mean, like you said, they've tweaked it, not so much, just a bit. And so Kirk in the future still meets a version of Khan.
Yeah, but I mean, but some people are saying is that actually not part of the original timeline. It's like an alternate universe. Trek yards often say it's the Discoverse or something. I don't know if I suppose in some ways, from my perspective, you can look into it a little bit too deeply. In the end, it's never going to be 100% accurate. It's been on for nearly 60 years. It's been made by so many people over the years, different contributors. It's not going to be exactly perfect. And I suppose that's the way I see it. How about you, Nick? Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think obviously there has to be a little bit of give and take in terms of telling good stories and having good character development and everything with the cast, but doing it in a way where you're not so literally locked down with every single plot point in every single episode that you go, we just can't tick every single box. We have to leave some boxes unticked or whatever in terms of every single moment of canon, I think, but I think provided they don't I think how they explained the whole Khan thing with the time travel, the Romulan time traveler going back and sort of messing about with stuff. Look, I think that to me is, you wouldn't want to do any more than that. I think that was just on the bounds of acceptability. And I think we can go, okay, this now, right, makes sense. Yeah, okay, but this is okay, but just don't don't do any more than that level of tweaking. But I think that was always, that whole eugenics thing was always going to be problematic because it took place in 1996 or whatever it was in the original series. So there was always going to be conflicts there, and they tried to get around that in Star Trek Picard when they showed Adam Sung, played by Brent Spiner, bring out that
the document which said Project Khan,
and the project was dated 1996.
I know.
And then in episode 1 of Strange New Worlds, I think Pike, when he was doing his big speech to that alien race or whatever on the planet, he did mention something to do with I think they mentioned something like, it was almost like during the mid 21st century, a lot of records, because obviously there's meant to be a third world war in there somewhere. Yeah. A lot of the records were lost, or facts and dates and stuff were all a bit mixed up. So it kind of, to me, that kind of makes sense that, okay, Starfleet history was based on the discovery of this maybe file that said 1996 Project Khan, and they just assumed it was the same year, but that was the year maybe that the project was
started the project to create the
that's when they started project. Yeah, exactly. That's when they started creating the science behind it and everything. Yeah, so that I get
Nick,
that level of retconning I think is good.
Nick, would you like to see I read the books years ago, the 3 books about Khan. Would you like to see them do a mini-series about Khan? I mean, it would be fascinating to see that.
So I think if you were going to do that, you would, I guess, would it be set right in the middle of the eugenics wars to see him at the height of his power I think, I think if you were going to tell that story, I feel like that would be a good story to tell in a movie or a TV movie. Or a limited series or something like that.
Yes,
I don't think that would have enough to do a whole new series out of it. I think a mini series or a movie would be good. You could touch on it, but I think it's a lot. It's a lot of dark content, a lot of slavery, and a lot of that really sort of dark stuff that sort of Khan and his followers got into. That would be quite a heavy watch, which you could cover in a movie. But I think it would be quite an ordeal to have a series based on that. But yeah, I'd love to see it. I think that would be actually quite good to have a movie.
You'd
about
watch
that
it. You'd watch it. We'd all be watching.
Absolutely.
Didn't Spock say in the original series that he was one of the better ones?
Oh, one of the better, something like that. Yeah. So at this point, I suppose we should sort of discuss what you both would like for the second half of season 2 of Strange New Worlds. Whether you're going to see the Gorn, whether it's more sort of continuity going towards TOS. Nick, what would you like to see with part 2?
Oh, look, I mean, as far as what I know is coming, obviously I'm highly looking forward to the Lower Decks crossover in episode 7. Mm-hmm. That's going to be that's going to be a really interesting episode because I know Jonathan Frakes is directing that episode, and I know, having obviously just watched season 3 of Picard, I mean, Riker got all the best lines in season 3, didn't he? All those cracking little jokes.
He was great.
And stuff.
He was hilarious.
I think they really gave Riker a really good amount of levity in that last season of Picard. So I think he's a really good choice to direct the episode, and obviously he's done episodes of Lower Decks where he brought his voice to play Riker on the Titan and everything. So I think he knows what he's making. He knows the content. He knows the tone. So I'm really looking forward to that. Obviously, we've got a Gorn episode coming up towards the end of the season, which I think is probably going to be the last episode of the season. Okay. We know that they've hinted at the Gorn are coming in that first episode where we saw the admirals at Starfleet
Yes, they did. They had a
They
had a little map of the Federation. It's like, oh, there's some Gorn sightings here on the edge of this area of space, So we know that they've already set that up in terms of the Gorn are on their way. And I know the last episode of the season is called Hegemony, which is the name for the Gorn collective.
That's it. Yeah.
One thing I would like to see, and I did mention this theory on a live stream I did a few weeks back or whatever, is that we've obviously seen the Gorn in their very animalistic state. In the first season, where it's almost like Star Trek meets aliens or whatever.
Yes, it was very much.
The xenomorph kind of thing. But then we also know the Gorn fly around in starships, and they're an organised military structure. So you got to think, well, how do they get from this, this creature that's tearing people apart, like
a werewolf,
a werewolf or a lion or a tiger, to an organised military structure? And I think that needs explaining. And the only way I can think of doing it that kind of would make any sense would be if you established the fact that the Gorn, as they get older, almost evolve from, they start out when they're first born as these very vicious, werewolf-like, animals that tear people apart.
Predators,
But as they age, say they live to 200 years old, as they age, they essentially evolve to developing language skills, developing more of a, they've still got that, animalistic quality, but they're more a bit, maybe not so much man in the rubber suit like we saw in a original series.
Yes, exactly.
But something that you would plausibly believe these guys have built starships and are flying around in some sort of organised military structure.
It needs that explanation. It needs that explanation.
Maybe because when they're born, they let them loose somewhere, and it's about survival of the fittest, and they survive and they evolve. That whole structure could be based on when they have these hatchlings.
I think the older ones fly the starships, I reckon. So you got the ones that are like over 100 years old or whatever. They're the ones that have evolved into maybe speech and that military strategy and all that sort of thing. And the young ones we've seen on Strange New World season 1, they're the teenagers. They're the kids, the teenagers that are tearing people apart. And as they get older, they become more.
Well, what about if they could like? What about if they're like the Zindi, where they had like different races within an organised group, and maybe we've only seen one form of Gorn, and so you could have more where they're more, some are stand a bit more upright. As you say, they're a bit more in respect of intelligent military organisation, creating ships, and you have the
that would work
subsects or subspecies where they're more the warriors. They're more the ones.
There was one we saw in Enterprise.
Yes, in the Mirror
He was
Universe.
like a slave master.
He was in the Mirror Universe.
They were hired.
Yeah.
The Folians hired them to, security and stuff like that. I mean, that's another aspect we have seen of them. I mean, there ain't much about them, really, is there? Apart from on the game.
We've only seen them, we've obviously seen them only twice in Star Trek history, once in TOS and once in Enterprise. So
speaking of Enterprise, I want to know what the hell happened to the Suliban, what the hell happened to the Zindi. Like, these are races that were established in Enterprise that we have never seen in any other.
They were mentioned. They were mentioned in Star Trek Beyond. Zindi were mentioned in Star Trek Beyond.
But does that count? Because that was like Kelvin universe. I don't know.
That would have been because that would have been after Enterprise. So technically, yes.
Yes.
So
I mean, we did see we did see a Denobulan in
episode 3.
Yes,
and that was great.
So
he looks good as well.
Yep. So we did see them. So that they've at least right. We've seen another Denobulan in Star Trek Beyond.
And the
Enterprise.
Klingons look good. The Klingons are looking better.
Yeah, they are.
Oh, thank God!
I know.
Let's not go there.
We were so worried about that, and we saw the early preview and thought. I think their heads do look slightly. We said they look a bit plasticky. They don't have the Michael Westmore, who was just the most wonderful makeup artist ever in Star Trek. But I'm happy with them. I like them. They look good.
One thing that they looked more like to me was that if you look at the design for the Klingon makeup in the original series movies, they were much closer to that appearance than they were to the Michael Westmore look of his show, which therefore makes more sense. It's like, okay, because if you look at the Klingons in, say, Star Trek 6, Star Trek 5, it's like, they look much closer to that.
They do. I can see what you're going.
So I wonder whether the makeup designer in Strange New Worlds thought, okay, let's maybe skew it more towards these guys because that's closer to the Strange New Worlds timeline. Because provided they've still got the bumpy foreheads and they've got the Fu Manchu style mustache and the long hair, I think that's they got to have I think they did a good job. I think of bridging the gap there.
Well, I think with Enterprise, what they did was genius when the Klingons stole the augment gene,
virus,
and then that explained the '60s one. Because when I was seeing motion picture, I was like, yeah, but they're not Klingons. And then the excuses now for the different ones. The races they've conquered, the Vince are bred with. That's why apparently there's meant to be different versions with, like, because they've interbreeded with races they've conquered. I mean, that's what I would read. I could be wrong, but it's the excuse now.
Okay.
I noticed in one of your earlier reviews, Nick, you said that you saw a Discovery-style Klingon in episode 1 of season 2 of Strange New Worlds, mixed in with the more traditional Klingons. I think you said something like that. You said you saw one that looked a bit more like.
Really?
Yeah, I remember you saying. I'm sure it was you who said that, Nick. Maybe it was my mate.
Don't think that was me.
Wasn't it? Oh, maybe it wasn't. Somebody said that they did.
If there was, maybe they were like deep in the background or something.
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of different alien races in that little outpost they were on in that first episode.
Okay.
So I think whether it was a Klingon or whether it was another, because there was quite a few different alien races.
There's Tellarite there.
Yeah, in that whole mining area. So there could have been one as essentially a background extra. That's
they
possible.
really, what they should do really is they should actually have at least one or two of the Discovery Klingons, and then you can accept them as like a different subspecies, and then at least then it will stop people saying, oh, they completely redesigned the Klingons again, because it's going to make people be harsher with the Discovery era Klingons, which just look so wrong. Well, not to a lot of people, but to certain people. So I don't know. Who knows? I mean, obviously we're going to see them again. I think one of the trailers we saw some more D7 battle cruisers. So I think we will be seeing the Klingons again this season.
Well, if you think about Star Trek Picard, they explained the difference between the Michael Westmore style Romulans from the Rick Berman era shows.
They're northern.
Yes, they're from the north. So
that was so clever.
So if they've got the little V thing going on in the forehead, they're from the north. And if they haven't, like the Romulans we've seen in the original series and everything, then they're not from the north.
Nick, they should have had British northern accents. Can you imagine Robert saying like, trouble up north? We're going to go up there, trouble up north, Romulan over there. Sorry.
Hey up, it's a good day to die, lads. Hey up.
like a Liverpool, like, all right, mate, like, today's a good day to die, like, all right, fair. Sorry. We have so many actors in the UK, as you probably know, so it's just our
yes.
All right, and we're back. So before we hit recording, Nick was going on about the danger, potentially how animals in his part of the world are sometimes expanded upon, seeming worse than it perhaps is. So we had a very interesting chat. So I've had educational things about red-backed spiders, about not putting your hands near plant pots, and all sorts of things. But I digress. We're not here to talk about red-backed spiders.
What? Neighbours.
Well, you've got bad neighbours wherever you live in the world. I mean,
I'm on about the TV show.
Oh, Neighbours! I thought you meant Neighbours in general. Do you know what? One complaint about your country, Nick. Okay, on Amazon at the moment, we keep getting adverts for a soap from the 80s called Sons and Daughters. Right?
Oh yes.
And every time I see it, all I think is that music that used to go, sons and daughters, love and love. I still know the bloody. I'm not going to go on a bit. There we go.
Very soppy theme song. Yes, very soppy.
Prison Cell Blockade was the old.
Oh
one.
yes. That's right, yes.
Absolutely enormous over here.
Yeah.
We used to get it. They used to put it on at midnight. People, there'd just be the millions watching it.
It was huge.
With the wobbly sets and all that.
It wasn't called Cell Block H here. It was called Prisoner.
Oh, just Prisoner.
It was
I never
called
knew
Prisoner.
that. I was interested.
It was, the name was changed for overseas markets.
Okay.
Because I think was there another show called Prisoner?
There was The Prisoner.
Patrick McGowan.
Yeah, The
yes,
Prisoner.
yes. That was the reason it was changed.
Oh.
Yeah, because of that show.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because it was too close to that show. But in Australia, it was called Prisoner. They changed the name overseas so it wouldn't get confused with that other show.
Your version didn't have these big white balloons like chasing you down the beach like it did in the other Prisoner, did it?
No, you had B. Smith.
No.
If you've never seen The
That's
Prisoner,
right.
it's a very bizarre show. We've actually reviewed it, but it's a very surreal show. But anyway,
it's a massive cult over here.
Yeah, it's weird, but talking to someone who's not seen it and about big balloons running and stuff. Anyway, we are talking about Star Trek, and we are talking about what we think or fear what might happen in the future. So obviously a lot of the Star Trek news sites have been saying about lots of things which potentially could be a major issue for Star Trek coming along, especially on Paramount Plus. Of course, there are factors like there's the writer's strike, which of course in the short term is a big danger. We're also hearing that Paramount Plus are not doing financially as well as perhaps they anticipated. They're obviously a rival streaming site with things like Disney, Netflix and all the others. And of course, we've already heard some distressing but bad news for the Star Trek franchise. First of all, Star Trek Prodigy season 2 has actually been almost completed in production, but
this is true.
It is not going to go any further. Apparently it's not going to even be shown on Paramount Plus, which is a shock. And of course, Discovery was announced a few months back that even though they weren't told during the production of season 5, although I think they filmed an extra bit to finish this off, it was cut off quite short notice from what I gather. So obviously, as fellow Star Trek fans, we really want to get as much Star Trek as we can possibly get. But I suppose we've had a lot of years where we've had no Star Trek, i.e. between 2005 and when it came back in TV form in 2017. So guys, what do you think is going to happen? How do you feel about this? Get me your perspectives.
Oh, look, I mean, I think it is sad that Prodigy has been cancelled from Paramount Plus. However, I believe we're still going to get... They're shopping it around. It'll end up on Amazon or I mean, Amazon's probably the most likely home for it because, at least in Australia, Lower Decks is on Amazon. Star Trek Picard was on Amazon.
Right.
It's got a history of because I know Jeff Bezos is a massive Star Trek fan. I think he's even got the Enterprise model from one of the feature films in the lobby at Mission headquarters for his rocket ship company or whatever, Blue Origin. Yes,
that's it.
So I think it's not like it's been axed and it's never going to see the light of day. I think we'll certainly see the second season on a different streaming service. But I think it could potentially be a good thing in terms of, we know that Paramount Plus is in a bit of trouble. They've got to cut things back. We know part of the reason that Discovery was cancelled and that now Prodigy was cancelled is that they're having massive budgetary concerns, and obviously the writer strike's not helping things in that department either. But it's a case of, does this potentially mean that by trimming some of the fat, so to speak, that gives the concept of something like Star Trek Legacy, the Terry Matalas continuation series of Star Trek Picard, does that mean that this is more likely going to happen now?
I wanted that.
Yeah,
I wanted that
because I know that Terry has been a little bit tight-lipped about. He was very vocal when the show was on, and he was like that when I had a chat to him in that live stream, which you guys were talking about before, with the guys from the podcast, and he was really chatty and everything. And then not long after that, trying to get some sort of comment on him on certain things. I got in touch with his agent to try to get an interview with him, and it was all looking very, very positive. Then all of a sudden, the brakes got sort of put on, and I'm wondering whether the network has kind of said, okay, just between you and me, Terry, we're going to give you the show, but you've got to keep everything hush hush. You can't be talking to people about it. You can't be doing this and that and doing press about it. We've got to make some adjustments, budgetary adjustments with other shows that are on, but we're doing it to kind of free up space in the schedule so that we can make this happen. But just cool your heels for now, and play it cool. So I've kind of seen that everything's kind of been reined in terms of the publicity surrounding Terry and this concept of the Star Trek Legacy show. And I wonder whether the cancellation of Discovery, whether the cancellation of Prodigy, whether the whole Paramount Plus tightening their bootstraps, or tightening the purse strings with their shows, does give us a greater sense of hope that, okay, they're going to say, they know that it's going to make money. They know that the numbers
Picard season 3 did so well. It did exactly.
Picard, the numbers were through the roof on Picard season 3. Exactly.
I think why, because like Picard season 1 and 2, they were all right. I've watched them again. I did enjoy them the second time.
Yeah, I prefer them.
But there were faults with it. A lot of it. When season 3 came along, it just nailed it. And for me, I love Star Trek. I love Strange New Worlds. But I want to get back into the 25th century. I want to go, what happens to Cisco? Where's the Dominion now? We know what's happened to the Borg now. They're basically out of it, except that other faction.
Is Harry Kim a captain?
Out there.
I thought we might have seen Harry Kim flying around in the Enterprise F or something.
We had a bet. We had a bet the whole season about the captain of the Enterprise F was going to be Harry Kim, and in the end it was Shelby. It was Shelby in the end.
Actually, I heard a rumor about Harry Kim, and the rumor that I heard was that he wasn't able to appear because apparently the character of Harry Kim has been or was attached to Prodigy.
Has he been in it?
Oh.
I didn't know he's been in it.
He hasn't been in, not that we've seen, but I reckon Harry Kim's going to show up in season 2.
So that'd be the same as why we didn't see Janeway or like Chakotay, because they're affiliated now with Prodigy.
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well.
So I think maybe they sort of, because obviously there are certain characters from Voyager that they sort of rolled on to us seeing in Prodigy, and I did hear that there was some sort of I can't tell you what it was. I can't remember what it was I actually heard, but it was something to the effect of the character of Harry Kim was slated or
affiliated
attached,
or something with it.
Affiliated to be affiliated with the Prodigy stream.
Wow.
Therefore, they didn't want to sort of put him off in other stuff, and they wanted to keep that character to that sort of side of things. So I think there's a good chance that he might end up seeing him in season 2 of Prodigy when that eventually comes out, when they find a home for the show.
Yeah. Okay, well, that'd be interesting. Well, I think we're all in agreement, though, that the best way for Star Trek to go... I mean, of course, they have announced 2 new projects. The Section 31 TV movie with Michelle... What's the name? Michelle Yeoh. And also the Academy set in the Discovery era. Now, of course, as long-term fans, Star Trek Academy, Starfleet Academy show has been mooted since the 1980s with Harv Bennett. So I can see it being... But I am not that excited about potentially the Academy series. I would just want Legacy. I know it sounds a bit selfish as an older Trek
fan. You can do Academy episodes within the episodes. You remember that episode Next Generation with the Bajoran and the 2 officers? And she went off into the Cardassian. She didn't come back.
Lower Decks, that was cool.
I mean, they were like out of the Academy, and they were on. I mean,
and there was also that DS9 episode of the kids on the
Red Squad.
Yeah, Red Squad. You can do episodes of the Academy. I don't want 90201 in
Star Trek 90210.
I think the door's open with Legacy. everything's there. It's set up, the canon, all of it, and the characters. We're all set out, and they've got to pursue this because this will be the big series. Even though Strange New Worlds, I love Strange New Worlds, but Legacy is just going to be. It's what we want because there's so many answers we want from the 90s. We want to get back into that universe, you know.
Yeah,
and explore and see things and the queue and all that. So I mean, that's I could be wrong. I might get shot down for saying that, but I just want to get back.
I'm in agreement. I think the Discovery era Star Trek in the 32nd century is probably my out of all the eras of Star Trek, probably the one that I'm least keen on seeing stories told from.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah. And that's the strangest thing, because Star Trek in the past has always been a time of looking for further into the future, and it's very strange that they put this future. I think it's so far, I think it's so far into the future. It's and so disconnected to everything else that they kind of went too far. You know, I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. I agree.
I agree.
I think if I was going to do a Academy series and you weren't going to set it in the sort of the same time frame as 25th century, same sort of time as Picard and everything, and you had to pick another time frame, I think I would probably like to see it in that time frame in between Star Trek 6 Undiscovered Country.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. And Encounter at Farpoint.
I see where you're going with that.
There's a big gap between Undiscovered Country and Encounter at Farpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of time there which has never been explored.
No, and we want to see that. The Monster Maroon era, isn't it? With the Rachel Garrett, the Enterprise C, and all that sort of stuff.
That's right. Yes, exactly. That would be that'd be interesting. Story. I think you could also do an interesting show. Actually, the episode a couple of weeks ago reminded me of it with the time agency or whatever, that obviously the one that was in
Relativity and Voyager.
Relativity episode of Voyager. Same group that was on Strange New Worlds a couple of episodes back.
Yes, they were the same group. They were the same group.
Same group. I think you could do a show with the time traveling agencies, set in whatever it is. It's the 27th, 8th century or something like that. 29th century. Yeah. So I think that could be interesting.
Have I got my timeline wrong? Because didn't the dilithium thing happen in the 27th century?
The burn.
No, wasn't it the 30th? Wasn't it? It was about 100 years before.
No,
Discovery.
that was like 80 years before season 3 of Discovery.
So yes,
that would have been the 30th or 31st
century. Is
that
when the burn happened?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's about 100 years
afterwards. When I was watching
one
the other day, I saw a temporal ship, and I was sat there thinking, why is that working? And then I stopped for a moment. I thought, why is it working? Because
that's the problem when you got this big. This franchise is so big now. There's so many different splinters and things.
Well, you could just have the temporal ship, and the first 2 episodes could be they go back in time and fix the reason why the Klingons look so terrible in the first season of Star Trek Discovery, and then they go forward in time to make sure the burn never happens and that kid never screams and blows everybody up.
Yeah. So I watched that. I was so excited when they got into the future and we found out about the burn and was it a malevolent force? I so wanted this malevolent force, and when we got to the final couple of it was all about a kid having a tantrum, and I just exploded.
Yeah, let's just say there was quite a few expletives when Martin first saw that and told me about it. He was not impressed.
I was fuming, and it was the same with the 4th season. I thought it started amazingly with the world's being vacuumed up, and there was when they said galactic barrier was like
But that didn't even look like the galactic barrier. It looked like sort of like
oh no, it didn't.
blobs, didn't
and then
it?
we got there. We found out it was just a race of people that just didn't register we existed. Now I get it. We've had Star Trek episodes like, but I wanted. Why can't we have some dark force out there that's doing it malevolently, and they've got to stop it? I wanted that, and again, I thought I'm not going to fall for it this time, and I did, and so that's why I'm very wary with Discovery now.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably time we should sort of start thinking about wrapping things up. So, I just personally, I think let's just give one hopeful thing from each of us as to what we think or hope Star Trek will be. I think, as you guys have already said, that my hope is that we have some continuation in the 25th century with a legacy style series or movie. Potentially a series rather than a movie. That is what I hope will happen in the near future. Martin, what would you like?
Yes.
Two things. I'd like a Canon miniseries, 10 episodes, where he jumps into his past. You get it all, flashbacks into his past, and how he falls and then gets away from her. Could be done in 10 episodes. My main priority, Star Trek Legacy. That's what I want. I don't want anything else. I want that.
All right. And Nick, how about you?
Yes, absolutely. Giving Terry Matalas the reins of a Star Trek show, I think, is up there pretty high on the list. And I think just making sure, I think what Terry's done with that show, making sure that the people who are overseeing our Star Trek series have got that level of respect of the franchise, and we go from strength to strength in Strange New Worlds, and that continues to improve and get better and better. And yes, absolutely, Legacy is probably number one on the list.
Yeah.
And also resolving the writer's strike or whatever, and making sure everybody gets what they deserve and everything, so that all these shows can actually start up again, so that we can actually the brakes aren't put on everything, because obviously we had a big gap during COVID or whatever, when all these shows were locked down and when no shows were being made, and we had a huge gap of it was like a year without any Star Trek on TV, because nothing was being made, because everybody was locked down and they couldn't shoot stuff, and obviously whilst the writer's strike and everything's playing out, similar kind of things are going on, so hopefully that all gets resolved, and we get back to making really good Star Trek episodes. So that's I think what we want to see.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. We really thoroughly enjoyed having you join us today and just talk about all things Star Trek. Obviously, your channel, you do a lot of merchandising. Tell me quickly about what the stuff that you sell.
Yeah. So my channel, for those of you who don't know, it's all about Star Trek news and reviews. So I do reviews on all the latest episodes that are coming out, no matter what Star Trek show happens to be on air, and talking about that quite regularly. Once every kind of 3 weeks or so, I do a bit of a live stream as well with other Star Trek YouTubers and everything like that to talk about all the latest news and stuff that's going on. And also plenty like this t-shirt here, so I do a bit of merchandising as well, because you need YouTubing doesn't pay the bills.
You don't get a lot of money
by itself. You don't get a lot of money from views, so you sort of having the merch store as well helps things rolling along and everything. But if you haven't seen my channel, by all means, I'm sure Martin and Mike will put a link in the description of this video for you.
Already ahead of you, definitely. Yeah. We'll definitely put some links to your stuff. Yeah,
Thank you for coming on. Awesome. It's been an honour, mate. Cheers.
Thank you, mate. Well, actually, before we go,
it's my pleasure.
Before we go, there's one last request of you, Nick. This is an ongoing comedic thing, but there's this guy on YouTube who sings Star Trek themed songs, and he makes his own lyrics, and it's very funny. We haven't played one of these for ages, so you've got the choice of him singing his own lyrics to Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek The Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine. Which would you like to choose? And we'll leave it with that.
I think let's go Voyager.
Voyager.
Let's go Voyager. Yeah.
Well, this will give you an laugh if you've not seen it.
You're gonna love this guy. We've
been
trying to get him on for about 3 years.
It's very funny. We haven't played him for a while, but it is funny. So, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for watching our episode. We'll be back soon, and until next time, live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Hello. They call me Q. Before Star Trek Enterprise, none of the Star Trek shows had theme songs with words. Until now. And so, I present to you Star Trek Voyager, the theme song with words. Voyager, please come home. Voyager, and we're stranded in the Delta. Oh, please come home. Oh, Voyager, Voyager, come home. Voyager, and we're stranded in the Delta. Oh, please come home. Oh, Voyager, come home. We are all stranded in the Delta because Janeway decided to save old Kappa Voyager, and we're stranded in the Delta. Oh, please come home. Oh, Voyager, come home. We are all stranded in the Delta because Janeway decided to save old Kappa Voyager, and we're stranded in the Delta. Oh, please come home. Oh, Voyager, come home. Voyager, please come home.